Hey everybody, what's going on? Maxx here with another Master Duel video for you all. So today we've got some more games with DDD here. I definitely wanted to come back to this deck at least one more time before the end of Season 11, get some more games in with it. Not only for my own practice, of course, but also for the channel here, as I love showing off this deck. I love showing off cool, more roguish combo decks like this. But before we get too into this, real quick, I just want to quickly say that very recently, a few days ago as of recording this, I launched my Patreon page. So if you want another way to support the channel and also want to get some more daily bonus content, including previews for videos, bonus games not seen on the channel, Q&As, polls to decide what goes up on the channel, etc., feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description below there. So, in any case, yeah, DDDs, I think this deck is super fun, and I'm still having a bit of a time, like, getting super comfortable comboing with it. I've definitely been getting there. Obviously, I made the combo guide to establish a lot of the, like, core combos there, and those I feel I know, you know, obviously well enough, but as far as, like, comboing outside of that, which there is a lot of doing that in this deck, this is definitely one of those decks where it can help to know a core combo line, but beyond that, recognizing what plays you're able to make with additional extenders in your hand is also a very, very valuable asset. I haven't updated the build too much just yet, as I am still very much trying to get comfortable with the deck. I did, however, add DD Oracle King Dark, and I actually dropped the Kali Yuga for that. So I talked about doing that in the deck profile, that I was probably going to do that because not only had I not summoned Kali Yuga, but there wasn't really many opportunities for me to summon Kali Yuga. Really the only way for me to make it at all is to use like Genghis plus Siegfried to overlay these two, or to overlay like Oblivion King Abyss Ragnarok with one of these two, which that situation just like never came up at all. So I ultimately decided to put in D'Arc, which would come up a lot more often. D'Arc, really, you're not looking to use this effect at all. This is pretty much just a 2800 vanilla monster, but the fusion requirements are really easy, only 2 DD monsters. It's level 7, so it can be used in conjunction with Lamia to potentially make Siegfried. And it's also just a really good additional beat stick to have. Sometimes you need an additional beat stick, sometimes it can be used as an additional material to make like a Gilgamesh. It's just kind of like a filler DDD monster. You can also just make this and then slap a Machinex on top of it if you need to. It's basically, like I just said, a filler and very, very easy to make DDD monster for whenever you need one. Not DDD. There is actually a major difference between the two as far as like requirements go. Like Machinex, for example, has to be stacked on a DDD monster. It can't be stacked on a DD monster. So you have to be mindful of that. But anyway, yeah, so the build itself in the main deck I've been liking a lot. I did see some suggestions in the comments to potentially add some more extenders. I could definitely see that being the case. 1-for-1 I might end up cutting because I haven't used it yet, and I'm not the biggest fan of 1-for-1 in general, ever since like Ash Blossom has become a thing. It's really easy for your opponent to just Ash this card and then you're extra sad because they got a +1 on you and you're down on advantage and also don't have plays, which is a lot of the time is just like the end of the game right there. So I have seen suggestions for a Primal map, which I think I actually talked about I guess it'll depend on what order these videos come out, but not only was that suggested in the comments, but I've actually encountered DDD decks that are playing Primal map. That would be, of course, to search the Kepler from deck to hand. Could also end up searching the Rage King. I always mess up that name because it should be Reggie, right? This card is just Reggie specifically from the manga, but for some reason it got translated to Rage here instead. But anyway, yeah, I could also search Copernicus with that as well. So there are a lot of different good targets that you can search. Well, there's 2 really good ones and one kind of like meh, but sometimes still usable target that you can get with Primal's map. Of course, the downsides to Puri, I'll just pull up the card here for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. So if I could spell it right, that would help. And of course the Master Duel search function. There we go. Primal's map here. So the start of the main phase 1, you can add a monster with 0 attack from deck to your hand, but have your life points after adding it to your hand. You cannot activate the monster's effects. Until you normal summon a monster with that card or its name. Okay, so if you normal summon this or this, you should be able to get the effect afterward. So that does still work. Unlike 1-for-1, it doesn't put it on the board, so you do have to use your normal summon still. but you know, it also doesn't cost you a card from hand. It costs you half your life points, but you know, and this might sound kind of weird to some people, but I would rather pay half my life points than discard a card. I really, really would. Because, you know, I've talked about this a little bit before, and this is something I want to go into more whenever I someday make my just like general gameplay tips videos, which are in the works. Just trying to figure out how I'm going to format that bit. In any case, life points are a resource, not a score. The only point that matters is the last one. I saw a Reddit comment once that said, like, I would use a spell card that said pay all but one of your life points just to draw 2 cards, and I think in a lot of decks I would use that card as well. So just kind of show, I guess, a dramatic example of just how like effective as a resource life points are in that regard. But in any case, now I'm going into all kinds of like theorycraft stuff here about general gameplay. Let's take a look more specifically here at DDDs. Let's go through the card list, break it down card by card, and then look at some gameplay. So we are playing 1 DD Necro Slime, 1 DD Lamia, 3 Maxx, 3 DD Swirl Slime, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 DD Vice Typhon, 1 Nibiru, the Primal Being, 3 DD Savant Kepler, 1 DD Cerberus, 3 DD Savant Copernicus, 2 DD Orthos, 3 DD Gryphon, 1 DDD Oblivion King Abyss Ragnarok, 1 DD Savant Thomas, 1 Go DDD Divine Zero King Rage, 1 1-for-1, 1 Dark Contract with the Patent License, 3 Dark Contract with the Gate, 1 Dark Contract with the Swamp King, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 DDD Headhunt. That's going to be the main deck there. Extra deck's going to have 2 DDD Flame King Genghis, 1 DDD Oracle King Dark, 1 DDD Flame High King Genghis, 1 DDD Curse King Siegfried, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 DDD Wave King Caesar, 1 DDD Marksman King Tell, 1 DDD Wave High King Caesar, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 2 DDD Deviser King Deus Machinex, and then finally 3 DDD Abyss King Gilgamesh. So there is the list. Now let's take a look at some games. So our first duel here is going to be quite the game against floowandereeze, which I think is going to be one of our more difficult matchups, particularly in this like best of 1 format. We do manage to get the first turn, which is a huge nice advantage there. Although it would be normally if we had a good like going first hand, which we actually don't in this case. We have Maxx, Ash Blossom, and Nibiru, which if we were going second, this hand would be like perfect. But the only things we're really able to play here are just setting Orthos and setting the call by. I debated for a bit whether or not to actually set Orthos, but I did ultimately decide to do it. Just in case I summoned another DD monster, or another DD monster, and then this was still on the board, I could make a Gilgamesh that way, was my thought process there, so. Alright, opponent's going to start with the Pot of Extravagance, because, you know, I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, I at the very least have a bunch of resources, you know, going second here, but then they play Extravagance, and I'm like, alright, cool, so it's going to be an anti-meta deck. I decided to Ash Blossom the Extravagance. I usually do that, even if I'm, like, not, like, 100% sure what I'm playing against. If I know I was playing against floowandereeze, I might have saved the Ash Blossom, but even then, you could still make an argument for just ashing the Extravagance anyway, right? Because you know, even if you could use the Ash Blossom to negate like a Rabina or an Eaglin later, you can still cut them off from getting advantage with the Extravagance, which will make them less likely to have Rabina or Eaglin. In any case, I think Extravagance is right to Ash Blossom. It could have also not been floowandereeze. If it was something like Eldritch, we definitely would have wished we would have Ash Blossomed the Extravagance. So I think you regret not ashing Extravagance more often than you regret ashing it, is why I did it there. Yeah, after that, opponent activates Small World, and adds... What did they end up adding with that? Well, they added an M-Pen, which I thought was a very peculiar add. I don't really know what was going on with the Small World here. With the Stree, should they have been able to add the Rabina or the Eaglin? Yeah, they definitely should be able to add Rabina or Eaglin, so I don't really know why they didn't, but I'm okay with that. I'm super duper okay with that. Now, instead they normal summon the barrier statue and attack into my face down Orthos, which I'm like, okay, that's fine, question mark? Anyway, we top deck a Crossout Designator, not a useful draw at all, so I'm just going to set it and pass here. I'm very anxious about this. I'm like, okay, surely now they must have, like, their main game plan, right? But no, they actually don't, so I'm like, okay, this is still fine. What's not fine is top decking a Maxx C here. I'm like, you know, can I please have a live draw? Can I please have a live draw? I'm thinking like, okay, I'll set this Maxx C and then maybe I can like tribute summon Nibiru here and run over this barrier statue, but no, they just turned the statue to attack mode and set, or attack by set monster, which I don't think was right. I think they should have left their barrier statue in defense mode, but anyway, we finally get the out. Due to them having anti-spell fragrance, we're going to have to set it though. By the way, I'm not worried about anti-spell fragrance at all here as a DDD player, because I can just use Gilgamesh to set my scale. I really don't care. Yeah, so at this point they use their Jack in the hand. I'm of course going to add Rabina. At this point I'm thinking like, okay, surely now they're gonna have plays, right? Like they've got the Eagle, and I know they've got a an M-Pen in hand. Like, are they just gonna normal summon it? Like, I know they'll have to tribute their barrier statue, but I think that's still the right play. I'm DDD, so I can't use Gilgamesh if M-Pen is on the board, so I really don't have plays like, you know. But no, they just set a monster and then pass here. I'm baffled by this, but you know, we of course obviously take this as well. I really don't know. I'm really trying to figure this out. Like, I feel like this floowandereeze opponent had so many better plays, like at so many different other opportunities here, but they just didn't take them for some reason. Like, I'm assuming you added Eaglin with Jack in the hand there. Like, I don't know why we're setting a monster this turn. I also don't know why we normal summoned a barrier statue the turn we summoned it when we could have just, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Again, I feel like with that Small World is one of those cards where, like, I never am fully sure if I'm like understanding it correctly. To be totally honest, I'm like, because even right now, I'm pretty sure they could have added a Rabina or an Eaglin. Like, I'm fairly confident in that, but I guess I don't know 100% for sure. But I mean, yeah, no, they should have been able to, but whatever. So I finally get to flip up my, contract with the gate here. They do have an Ash Blossom, but I fortunately have this call by that I set a million turns ago. So, and then at that point they just concede and give me the game there. So, well, the quote-unquote connection failed, but I like to call that a rage disconnect. So, yeah, I guess my plan from there was just use these two to make Gilgamesh, and then set my scale, bring them back, go for a Caesar, and then from there it would have been pretty standard stuff to end on, like, well, that would have been standard stuff to end on Machinex plus High King Caesar. Obviously, High King Caesar doesn't do anything against floowandereeze, so I guess I probably would have had to reconsider my line a little bit there. Either way, though, easy enough game against Flunders. Even though we didn't get a great opening, the fact that our opponent did not take advantage of their resources, I don't think very well. Maybe just tried a little too hard to jam the wind barrier statue, I think, is what ended up happening there. But whatever the case, we're able to win. So let's go and take a look at the next duel. Alright, the next game we're going to show off here is going to be against good old Live Twins. Good old Live Twins, yep. This build here looks fairly standard. I saw some, like, Ragnarok and stuff, but, you know. Alright, so we're going to take the first turn, opening with Kepler plus Copernicus. So I'm just going to start with a regular Kepler line here. That would be to, of course, add the gate. Use the gate to add the Gryphon. Special the Gryphon, and then make a Gilgamesh. And establish plays from there. Although, I can, if I wanted to, I could go for a different scale than you would normally set here. The 0-6 scale. Because I have a ton of level 4 monsters in my hand to summon. So I'm going to go for the Gryphon and Ragnarok scale here instead. If you can go for Ragnarok, it's typically a good idea to do so. And if you're wondering what I mean by like the typical line, or I've mentioned like core combos a little bit before in the profile as well, feel free to check out the description below. I have linked there my combo guide for this deck. So if you're interested in DDDs but have been, I guess, kind of like intimidated by how combo intensive they are, yeah, just check out my combo guide. It'll simplify things there, show you a lot of the core lines, and get you used to thinking about how this deck combos and how to make plays with it subsequently. So, excuse me there. In any case here, so even though I had other materials I had other monsters to make the second Gilgamesh with, I want to save my Gryphon and my Orthos to make a Siegfried with. Basically, my goal here is to end on, what is it? At the very least, Machinex plus High King Caesar plus Siegfried. Although I think if I play it right, I might be able to end with a DD Headhunt as well. I think, maybe. We'll see how it ends up playing out here. So yeah, going for the third Gilgamesh here might look a little bit weird, especially when I already have one on the board, but I wanted to use both the Tell and the Caesar as materials in order to get as much setup as possible. Marksman Tell is actually a pretty ridiculous card in the grand scheme of things, being able to foolish any deity or dark contract card, and it's not once per turn. So if you bring back Marksman King Tell and then start sending it again, then you can continue to bring back even more what do you call it? You continue to bring back even more, or rather, you can foolish even more deity monsters, which is often very, very helpful. There are some games. This wasn't really one of them. We only used Tell twice, but I think I've had games where I've used Tell as many as like 4 times in a single turn, just to keep sitting up the graveyard and keep making plays. Very, very nice there. So, who's going to activate Trouble Sunny? I'm just going to go ahead and negate it with Siegfried. We didn't set the DD Headhunt. That might have been a different game I was thinking of, or I could just be misremembering. But still ending on Siegfried plus Machinex plus High King Caesar. That's going to be a Spell Trap negate right here, as we're doing with the Trouble Sunny. 2 special summon effect negate. So even if they have a Kisakil or Leela in hand that they can normal summon, as soon as they summon it and try to activate the effect, I'm just going to negate it with Caesar and just be done with it there. And then we of course have the Machinex as well. So even if they get those, that Kisakil or Leela online, once the effect activates, I can pop one of my dark contracts and just attach it as a material. And because I have 2 dark contracts, I actually get to do this, I think, 2 more times than usual. If you had 1 dark contract, you get to Machinex, pop the contract, attach something, then have 2 materials, and you can use the effect again, detach 2, and attach something else for 1 material. But then because I have another contract, I could do that, yeah, 2 more times. I could pop something again, attach something else, have 2 materials, detach those, and attach again. So I can use Machinex a total of 4 times this turn. And even though Machinex doesn't actually negate the monster effects, when it uses its effect, it only steals the monster and attaches it as a material. I say only, but that's still a really powerful effect to rob your opponent of onboard materials. At that point, my opponent just concedes here. After I negate their Trouble Sunny, which I was kind of surprised. Usually Live Twins is at least a little more resilient than that, but I guess they just didn't have the best opening hand there. But yeah, in any case, I just wanted to show you what diverting from the core 1-card combo can look like with additional materials, and then what you can make with additional extenders in hand. So yeah, I just want to show, like, again, just a non-standard combo line. So let's go take a look at the next duel. This one's going to be against Adventure Phantom Knight, and I was like, oh, finally, when I played against my opponent here. Is this really the first? I'm thinking back, I don't know that I've played against any other Adventure Phantom Knight players, like, at all this season. I think maybe a couple, like, when, you know, the Baneless first dropped and Torrent Scales is at 3, but after that first couple of days, there was, like, not any until this one here, like, you know, a week before the end of the season is the time I recorded this game, so... yeah, it's kind of like, it's a little disappointing, I'm not going to lie. It's actually more than a little disappointing. I really wanted to see Adventure Phantom Knights do well. I really like the deck, and I think it's really, really strong. Well, I already talked about this when I recorded my Adventure Phantom Knights video recently, which I think should have gone out a little bit before, or the day before this one. But anyway, I've got Swirl Slime plus Necro Slime, and that's all I've got because my Dark Contract with the gate got negated. But that's fine. That's still going to be a High King Caesar, as you can see here. It's pretty easy to make a couple of Genghises with those 2 cards. So, plus I do have Maxi and Ash Blossom, so I've got like multiple negates as well as a Maxi here. I'll let the Ash Blossom, or I'll let the Foolish Barrel resolve. I did think about Ash Blossoming it, but I was like, you know, like I said, I've got a Search negate. I've got multiple Summon effects and negates, so I think I'm fine here. I will definitely be negating this Rite of Armistice with my High King Caesar. No question about that, especially since I've got another negate on it. My opponent actually does follow up by playing yet another Rite of Armistice, and I'm going to negate this one as well. Wasn't like a super duper easy decision to make. I did think about this one a little bit, but I said, you know what, I don't want this Gryphon Rider to get on board at all. Like, I can't let it be established here. So as soon as my opponent normal summons an Ancient Cloak, I immediately recognize what's going to happen here, right? They're going to send it for the Almirage, you're going to use the Cloak to add the Shade Brigandine, set that. Basically, they're just going to make a Vert Anaconda into a DPE. Do be mindful of that. If your opponent just normal summons an Ancient Cloak and doesn't have any other cards to work with, that might look like a dead hand, but that is enough to make a DPE by itself. So, since I know that an Almirage is inevitable, since I know a Link 1 is inevitable, I'm going to fire off the Maxi in response to the normal summon here. I've seen people ask before, like, how do I decide when to activate Maxi? And it's very, very matchup dependent. It's extremely matchup dependent. Normally, generally speaking, I save Maxx for when they activate an effect that special summons. Basically when I can guarantee to get a draw. Unless they are playing a deck which I know has Link 1 monsters in it, then I will respond to a normal summon if I think they're going to go for a Link 1 monster. As I mentioned here, they're going to go for Almirage. Well, they end up having a call by anyway, so... So in that regard, it kind of didn't matter, but I still want to talk about when I like to Maxx there, as a general rule of thumb. But it's honestly not even just matchup dependent, it's also just very situationally dependent there as well. So, that said, there are still general rules of thumb you can follow, and as I said, my general rules of thumb are play Maxx in response to a special summon effect, unless they are a deck with Link 1s, then play in response to a normal summon. Also, like, what is this? What is my opponent's hand here? I actually had an Ash Blossom for the Ancient Cloak search, but they end up having a Crossout Designator as their last card, in addition to the call by, in addition to both Rite of Arm Messirs. It was almost comical at this point, right? It was almost just plain comical at how my opponent was able to have, like, so many plays here against me, but... So at this point, I'm kind of thinking, like, well, I'm screwed. Because, like, what am I going to do here? My opponent's going to make TPE, they'll pop my High King Caesar, and then they'll pop my Dark Contract with the Gate next turn, and I'll only have one card to work with. So it better be a hell of a good card that I top deck here, right? We'll see what it ends up being. I actually don't remember what it is off the top of my, off the top of my head, so I'm a little eager to find out myself. Oh yeah, they don't even have to pop the Caesar DPE, because the DPE's effect, they actually get to drop it. Now, I do get to add a Dark Contract with my High King Caesar here, which I did forget about in the moment, and admittedly also just now. But what? No, I didn't. I'm the greatest Master Duel player ever. In any case here, that will give me an additional, like, bait for DPE, and I actually do rip a very relevant top deck, the Copernicus here. So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I'm going to bait with the, I'm going to try to bait with the Swamp King here, and see if my opponent will take that bait, and they actually do. You might have noticed I sent Vice Typhon with Copernicus. That was so that I would have a way to summon a monster. Obviously my Necro Slime I already used, and Lamia, I don't have a Dark Contract to send with it, so Vice Typhon into a... Well, it could have been Genghis or D'Arc here, but that was the only way. It should have been D'Arc, actually, now that I think about it, but in any case, that was the only way I was going to get another DDD monster on the board in order to make Gilgamesh. And now that as long as I can make Gilgamesh, I know I've got plays from there. The only monster in my extra deck right now is the Copernicus, but I can use the Gryphon plus Thomas scale setup here. If you need another level 4 monster, if you Pendulum Summon with Gilgamesh... Basically, if you're setting up a scale of Gilgamesh, and you're trying to get 2 level 4 monsters, but you only have 1 in your extra deck, then yeah, you want to set Gryphon plus Thomas, because then you can Pendulum Summon your level 4, then use Gryphon effect, blow it up, power up your Gilgamesh, use Thomas effect to turn the Gryphon to your hand, and then you can special summon Gryphon from your hand with its own effect. From here, this is a pretty standard part of most combo lines, overlaying 2 level 4s into Caesar, and then overlaying the Marksman King Tell on top of the Caesar. However, given how many life points my opponent has, I can actually use the Tell's effect on the Vert Anaconda, dropping it to 0 attack and dealing 1,000, and that's actually going to be enough for lethal just right there. So I don't even have to continue with the combo line. I could have continued with the line. I could have sent Tell. Well, actually, no, I'm thinking, right? I would have sent Tell and Gilgamesh for another Gilgamesh normally there, but Tell doesn't really have anything good to send at this point, because Necro Slime and Typhon have both already been used. It would have had to have sent Lamia, which would have been pretty meh. So that was, I mean, either way, we're able to end the game at that point, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I think I have one more game to show off, so let's jump straight into it. Alright, last duel for this video is going to be against Synchrons, which I haven't played against this deck in a long time. Was the Synchro Festival really the last time I played against this deck? Yeah, I think it was, actually. Alright, so looking at this hand here, I've got Kepler plus Gryphon, so that's a decent amount of plays here. Or it would be if my opponent didn't Valor my Kepler. It's actually fine here. The Kepler getting Valor doesn't matter, because what we would do with Kepler in this situation is just search for Gate and activate Gate, search for Gryphon anyway. So, like I said, this is actually totally fine in this situation. I can just special the Gryphon, go into Gilgamesh, which I normally would have done anyway. And I'm going to set up my 0 to 6 scale with Rage and Cerberus here. Or at least I would if my opponent didn't have another effect Valor. That's very annoying, but what can you do? What I'm going to do is activate my Dark Contract with the patent license. That way, once my opponent link summons, or rather, I always forget that you can go into Machinex as just one material. For some reason, that always slips up my mind, because I was going to say, like, oh, I'll just use the patent license and keep them from blink summoning, but I'll still activate the patent license here. That part I did remember correctly, but I'm just going to sit at the Machinex here with it instead. There is actually an argument to make for leaving Gilgamesh with patent license up, which I actually thought about doing in the midst of this game. That way, if my opponent link summons, then that's going to be the only link summon they can do, is just that one. And, you know, as we all know, most decks that link summon like to do it more than once per turn. But now the Machinex was, I just think, the safer setup here. So they're going to Rhoda and then use the Junk Converter here to get the Junk Synchron. Now, I actually make a pretty huge misplay right here. When Junk Synchron activates its effect, what I wanted to do was use Machinex effect in response, and then also chain Maxx after that. That way I would get the draw from the Maxx off Junk Synchron's effect, but Junk Synchron would get attached to Machinex as a material. Then my opponent wouldn't be able to make the Junk Speeder, and this would probably be the end of the game at this point. But I actually did this in the wrong order, and I used the Maxx first. And here's the thing. Machinex is one of those effects that has to be used directly in response to the effect that's being activated. So since I used Maxx first, and that's now the latest thing on the chain link, Machinex can't activate its effect at this point. Now, I still, of course, will be getting all the draws off Maxx that this Junk Speeder is going to provide me, but I would have much rather them not be able to summon the Junk Speeder at all in the first place. That would have definitely been my preference here. Is to just not have to deal with this at all. But, you know, again, just due to that small, and sometimes that is all it takes, is just a small misplay or a small misclick. I just, again, clicked them in the wrong order, clicked the Maxx before the Machinex, and then of course this always happens this way too, or at least to me, and it's not just Master Duel, it's like any video game, whenever I make a mistake like that, I always realize, like, the instant after I made the mistake. I feel like there's a name for that, like, psychological phenomenon that I can't remember off the top of my head right now, where, like, you only realize you screwed up the moment after you screwed up. It's like, of course, if I'd realized one moment sooner, then I could have not screwed up, but oh well. Such is life, such is the human mind, all that fun stuff. So, yeah, at this point, we're just gonna have to watch the Synchron deck combo out, and we're in the Nibiru waiting room at this point, just waiting to draw Nibiru and stop our opponent from comboing off. Although, I think my opponent might have, I don't know. Actually, I don't know the extent of this combo or how it's played, but I feel like my opponent might have been able to do so, like, a little bit differently. What they're going to end up doing is going for the Stardust and following that up with the Chaos Ruler. And here I'm like, okay, this is definitely a good Ash Blossom target. And as I go to Ash Blossom this, I realize, like, my opponent might not even be able to finish me this turn. Like, they only have those two other cards in their hand that they started with, and they're not getting anything off the Chaos Ruler. They still have the Jet Synchron on board, so yeah, they just have to go to battle phase and smack you with the Chaos Ruler and Stardust. Now, again, and then they just conceded at that point, as they realized, like, I was going to get a turn, and I was going to get a turn with a whole bunch of cards in hand, so I think my opponent may have messed up the combo, I think. I don't know. I don't know how Synchron's combo. I'm not familiar with the deck, but I personally would assume that if you resolve a Junk Speeder, then you should probably win the game for summoning 5 tuners out of your deck, but I don't know, maybe that's not the case, or maybe my opponent just ended up making a bit of a misplay there. Maybe they do actually need that Excavation, that Ash Blossom was just enough, but who knows. Maybe you do in the comments. If you do, definitely let me know. As always, as ever, I'm open to that feedback in regards to gameplay there, but either way, that is going to do it for the gameplay. Let's just now move to the outro. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for watching all the way to the very end like this. I greatly appreciate that, not just personally, but as a means of supporting the channel. Again, like I mentioned at the top of the video, if you're interested in other ways of supporting the channel, you can definitely do so through the Patreon, linked in the description below, where you will, again, not only be, of course, supporting the channel here and the content that's getting produced, but also you will get access to a whole slew of daily bonus content there as well. So, But, you know, even that aside, you can also still support the channel by commenting and subscribing, as always as ever. Comments, I'm always looking forward to those. I'm always looking forward to the feedback in regards to deck building, gameplay, just anything with the channel, really. And subscribing, that's going to get you notifications of when these videos drop, which does happen every single day. So you do have daily Master Duel content to look forward to here on YouTube and again on Patreon as well. But that's going to go ahead and do it for today. So without further ado, this is Hexlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.